Hello friends. Welcome to the Saiyan What Ifs. How are you all? So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Goku became the Omni-King. So be sure to subscribe and like this video. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. The Cosmic Vacancy. The first tremor struck while Goku stood alone atop Mount Paozu, his GI billowing in the pre-dawn breeze. Not an earthquake. Something far more profound. Reality itself seemed to shudder, a dissonant vibration that rattled his bones and set his teeth on edge. The sensation vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving nothing but the mountain stillness and a cold sweat on his brow. What was that? He whispered, scanning the horizon as if expecting to see physical evidence of the disturbance. Years of fighting gods and monsters had attuned Goku's senses to energies beyond mortal perception. This wasn't the aggressive pulse of a new enemy or the controlled surge of a familiar power. This felt like the universe itself had hiccuped, a fundamental glitch in the machinery of existence. He closed his eyes, extending his awareness beyond the confines of Earth, past the boundaries of Universe 7. Nothing seemed amiss, yet the memory of that cosmic tremor lingered like the aftertaste of something bitter. Goku had just decided to seek Whis' counsel when reality fractured again. This time, the sensation drove him to one knee. Colors inverted momentarily, the blue sky flashing crimson, the green forests below bleaching bone white. The air thinned, as if some cosmic force had stolen a percentage of oxygen from the atmosphere. Then normal service resumed, reality snapping back into place with the abruptness of a rubber band. Something's wrong. He pressed 2 fingers to his forehead, preparing to teleport to Capsule Corporation where Bulma might have equipment to analyze these phenomena. Before he could focus on her energy signature, space tore open directly before him. Whis emerged from the dimensional rift, his usually placid features tight with concern. "Son Goku," he said, his voice carrying none of its customary playfulness. "Your presence is required immediately." "Whis, did you feel that weird?" "There's no time," the angel interrupted, extending his staff. "The Grand Priest has summoned you personally." "Me? Why would he?" "Please," Whis said, the single word carrying uncharacteristic urgency. Goku nodded, placing his hand on Whis' shoulder. Questions could wait. The angel's demeanor suggested a crisis beyond anything in recent memory. The journey through dimensional space lasted longer than any previous trip with Whis. They passed through layers of reality that Goku had never witnessed before, crystalline structures larger than solar systems, swirling vortices of impossible colors, and vast empty expanses that seemed to consume light itself. Throughout their passage, more tremors rippled through the fabric of existence, each one stronger than the last. "Whis, what's happening?" Goku asked as they navigated a corridor of warping space-time. The angel's expression remained fixed forward. "The multiverse is experiencing difficulties. I'm not authorized to elaborate further." They emerged into the celestial realm housing the Omni-King's palace, but the magnificent structure now stood surrounded by coruscating energy fields. Enormous CKS had appeared in the crystalline surfaces of the palatial buildings, pulsing with an unearthly light that shifted through spectrums beyond mortal vision. Angels from all 12 universes hovered in formation around the central palace, their staffs raised in a synchronized defensive pattern. The assembled gods of destruction and supreme Kais stood on a lower platform, their usual antagonism forgotten as they gazed upward with expressions ranging from awe to terror. "Stay close," Whis murmured as they descended. "Speak only when addressed directly." The Grand Priest materialized before them, his diminutive stature belying the immense power that radiated from his form. Unlike his usual composed self, he appeared slightly disheveled, a fine sheen of sweat visible on his brow. "Son Goku," he acknowledged with a curt nod. "You've arrived just in time." "In time for what?" Goku asked, ignoring Whis' earlier instruction. "What's causing these tremors?" The Grand Priest considered him for a moment before responding. "The Omni-Kings are evolving. It was not anticipated to occur for several billion years, but something has accelerated the process." "Evolving? You mean like getting stronger?" A flicker of impatience crossed the Grand Priest's face. "No, they are transcending their current existence, ascending to a higher plane of reality that exists beyond the multiverse they created." A deafening crack split the air, and a section of the palace collapsed in slow motion, dissolving into particles of light before it could impact the ground. "We're running out of time," the Grand Priest said. "Follow me." They flew toward the heart of the palace, passing through chambers that warped and shifted as if unable to maintain consistent dimensional properties. The walls occasionally became transparent, revealing glimpses of distant universes, primordial voids, and spaces between realities that defied comprehension. In the innermost sanctum, Goku found the twin Xenos floating within a sphere of energy that pulsed with such intensity that it hurt to look at directly. Their small bodies had become semi-transparent, cosmic patterns swirling beneath their skin. Their normally simplistic faces were contorted in what might have been pain or ecstasy, perhaps both. "Goku," they called in unison upon seeing him, their voices overlapping in disconcerting harmonics that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You came." Goku approached the energy sphere cautiously. "Hey there, what's happening to you guys?" "We're going up," the Xenos said, giggling despite the obvious strain in their voices. "Beyond, beyond, beyond." The Grand Priest stepped forward. "The Omni-Kings have received a call from what we might term super-existence, a realm that transcends the multiverse itself. It appears they were always destined to evolve beyond their current form, though the timeline has been mysteriously accelerated." "But," Goku frowned, processing this information, "if they leave, who's going to watch over everything?" A ripple of tension passed through the assembled divine beings. The Grand Priest turned to Goku, his expression unreadable. "That," he said quietly, "is precisely why you have been summoned." Before Goku could respond, another tremor shook the palace, more violent than any before. Several divine attendants lost their footing, and even Whis had to stabilize himself with his staff. The energy sphere containing the Xenos flared brilliantly, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. When the light dimmed enough to see again, the Xenos had risen to hover directly above the sphere. Their bodies now pulsed in rhythm with the cosmos itself, stars and galaxies visible within their translucent forms. "We have to go soon," they said, their child-like voices now layered with ancient harmonics. "But first, we need to pick someone new." The implications hit Goku like a spirit bomb. "Wait, you don't mean..." "The position of Omni-King cannot remain vacant," the Grand Priest confirmed. "The multiverse requires a sovereign to maintain its fundamental stability. But shouldn't it be someone who knows about all this stuff?" Goku protested, gesturing around the palace. "I'm just a fighter from Earth." The Xenos drifted closer to Goku, their eyes now glowing with inner light. "We like Goku," they said in that disconcerting unison. "Goku is fun. Goku is strong. Goku is good." "There are established protocols for selecting a new Omni-King," a new voice interjected. Goku turned to see a female angel he didn't recognize. Taller than Whis but with similar pale blue skin. She carried an ornate staff wrapped in symbols that seemed to shift and change when not viewed directly. Her white hair was styled in an elaborate braid that defied gravity, floating around her head like a halo. "Sleria speaks the truth," the Grand Priest acknowledged. "There are indeed protocols. However, the Omni-Kings have sovereign authority to name their successor." "With respect," Sleria continued, her melodious voice carrying an edge of steel, "a mortal has never held the position. The cosmic balance is already disrupted," the Grand Priest finished for her. "These are unprecedented circumstances that may require unprecedented solutions." Another tremor rocked the palace, this one lasting longer than the others. When it subsided, one entire wing of the structure had simply ceased to exist, leaving behind nothing but empty space where magnificent architecture had stood for billions of years. The Xenos giggled, the sound echoing strangely across dimensions. "We decide. We pick Goku. But I don't know the first thing about being an Omni-King." Goku protested. "That's what makes you perfect." The Xenos replied with childish logic. "You'll make everything interesting." The Grand Priest sighed almost imperceptibly. "It appears the decision has been made." Sleria stepped forward, her posture rigid with disapproval. "Grand Priest, his mortal knows nothing of cosmic administration. He cannot possibly understand the complexities of multiversal governance or the delicate balance required to." "I agree with you," Goku interrupted, surprising everyone. "I'm not the right person for this job. I'm a fighter, not a ruler. You should pick someone else." A murmur ran through the assembled divine beings. Refusal of divine appointment was practically unheard of. The Xenos floated directly in front of Goku, their faces inches from his. Despite their childlike appearance, the power emanating from them at this moment was terrifying in its immensity. No one else, they said, their voices suddenly deeper, older somehow. Must be Goku. Universe needs heart and strength together. Others have one or other. Goku has both. The ND priest approached and lowered his voice so only Goku could hear. There is more at stake than you realize. The Omni-King's departure will create vulnerabilities. Ancient threats may emerge. The multiverse requires a guardian who understands the value of life at all levels, from the cosmic to the individual. But, do you truly believe anyone else would wield absolute power more responsibly? The Grand Priest asked quietly. That question struck Goku silent. He thought of Frieza, of Zamasu, of every opponent who had sought power for its own sake. Even among the gods, how many truly valued mortal life? Another violent tremor shook the palace, and this time, the damage didn't stop. Entire sections began dissolving into particles of light, reality itself becoming unstable around them. Time's up, the Xenos announced cheerfully. We go now. Goku takes our place. Before anyone could react, they raised their tiny hands in unison. A blinding light erupted from their palms, engulfing Goku completely. He felt his body lifting from the floor, energy unlike anything he had ever experienced coursing through him. Wait, he called out, but his voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Be good, Omni-King. The Xenos' voices echoed as their physical forms began dissolving into pure energy. Make everything fun and fair. The light intensified to an impossible degree, and for a moment, Goku perceived all of existence simultaneously, every planet, every life form, every thought across 12 universes. The sensation was overwhelming, threatening to shatter his consciousness into countless fragments. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the light receded. Goku found himself floating where the Xenos had been moments before, the remnants of their power still crackling around his body. The palace had stabilized, the cracks in reality sealing themselves as if responding to his very presence. Every divine being in attendance had dropped to one knee, heads bowed, even the gods of destruction. Only the Grand Priest remained standing, regarding Goku with an unreadable expression. All hail Son Goku, he announced formally. The new Omni-King. The words hung in the air, heavy with finality. Goku looked down at his hands and nearly gasped. His skin occasionally turned transparent, revealing glimpses of cosmic energy flowing beneath. His GI had transformed into flowing garments of a material he couldn't identify, seemingly solid yet fluid, pulsing with subtle patterns that mirrored the movements of distant galaxies. This isn't right, he whispered. But even his whisper carried throughout the chamber like a pronouncement. The Grand Priest approached, bowing slightly. The transformation is incomplete. The ascension ritual must be performed properly to stabilize your new existence. Until then, you are between states. Goku tried to sense his own power level but found nothing familiar to measure. It wasn't that his energy had increased, it had fundamentally changed into something beyond ki or life force as he understood them. I never agreed to this, he said, struggling to keep his voice steady. Perhaps not explicitly, the Grand Priest replied. But your presence here when summoned was tacit acceptance of the possibility. The Omni-King saw something in you that qualified you above all others. Sleria approached, her disapproval still evident despite her formal bow. The ritual must begin immediately. The multiverse cannot sustain an untrained Omni-King for long. As if to emphasize her point, another tremor shook the palace, milder than before, but clearly connected to Goku's unsettled state. What does the ritual involve? Goku asked warily. A process of attunement, the Grand Priest explained. Your mortal consciousness must be expanded to encompass multiversal awareness without losing your essential self. It is not without discomfort. That's putting it mildly, Sleria muttered, just loudly enough for Goku to hear. The Grand Priest shot her a warning glance before continuing. Normally, candidates undergo centuries of preparation before ascension. We will need to condense this process significantly. And if I still refuse? Goku asked, though he already suspected the answer. Then the multiverse destabilizes, the Grand Priest stated simply. Reality requires an Omni-King to maintain its cohesion. The Xenos, power has already partially transferred to you, it cannot be redirected to another without catastrophic consequences. Goku closed his eyes, feeling the weight of 12 universes pressing against his consciousness. He thought of Chi-Chi, Gohan, Goten, and all his friends on Earth. Then he thought of every other planet, every other family across existence. I'll do it, he said finally, opening his eyes with new resolve. But I'll do it my way. I won't stop being who I am. A ghost of a smile touched the Grand Priest's lips. That, Son Goku, is precisely why you were chosen. The announcement of Goku's ascension spread across the multiverse with the speed of divine thought. In each universe, the news was received differently, setting in motion chains of events that would soon converge. In the sacred realm of Universe 11, a slender figure stood before an ornate mirror, adjusting the high collar of her newly manifested angel attire. Sleria had been elevated from her previous position as guardian of the divine archives to replace Margarita, who had been reassigned following recent cosmic restructuring. A mortal Saiyan, she murmured, her reflection showing the frown she typically concealed in official settings. The absolute pinnacle of inappropriate appointments. She had studied the histories of all 12 universes extensively during her millennia in the archives. The Saiyans, particularly those of Universe 7, represented everything problematic about mortal evolution: aggression without restraint, power without wisdom, potential without patience. And Son Goku embodied these traits more than most, despite his reputation for good-heartedness. His battle with Beerus had nearly destroyed Universe 7. His involvement with the Tournament of Power had placed all existence at risk. Time and again, his actions demonstrated a fundamental lack of understanding regarding cosmic consequences. Now this same impulsive fighter had been elevated to Omni-King. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts, a summons from the Grand Priest. With a sigh, Sleria took her staff and opened a spatial passage. Her assignment was clear: assist in the new Omni-King's instruction and stabilization. Her personal opinions were irrelevant. As she stepped through the dimensional corridor, Sleria straightened her posture and composed her features into a mask of professional neutrality. She would fulfill her duties perfectly, as she always had, even if it meant serving the most dangerously unqualified Omni-King in cosmic history. Between the boundaries of recorded universes, in a pocket dimension that existed in the conceptual space between, was, and might be, a solitary figure sat cross-legged before a pool of liquid starlight. Korra, last surviving Kai of an erased universe, traced patterns on the luminescent surface with her fingertip. Unlike the Kais of the current multiverse, her skin was deep violet, marked with silver sigils that spiraled across her exposed arms and face. Her white hair hung in a single thick braid that reached the ground where she sat, moving slightly as if stirred by unfelt currents. The pool's surface rippled, howling fragmented images of the cosmic tremors and the ascension of a new Omni-King. Korra leaned closer, her silver eyes widening as she recognized the mortal who now bore the ultimate authority. The Saiyan from Universe 7, she whispered, her voice unused to speech after countless years of solitude. The one who challenged the gods. Hope and apprehension battled within her chest. Since the erasure of her home universe, an event that predated even the Tournament of Power, Korra had existed in this in-between space, neither truly alive nor dead. By rights, she should have been erased along with every other being from her reality. Her mysterious survival remained unexplained, though she had formed theories during her long isolation. Now, with a fundamental change in the cosmic hierarchy, perhaps answers were finally within reach. A mortal ascending to Omni-King status represented an unprecedented disturbance in established order. Disorder created opportunities. Korra waved her hand over the pool, dissolving the images. She stood, stretching limbs that had remained motionless for decades, and began gathering the few possessions that had survived along with her, ancient texts writ in languages no living being remembered, artifacts from civilizations that now existed only in her memory. The boundaries will be thinner now, she murmured to herself. The transition creates vulnerabilities. She had waited patiently for any chance to understand why she alone had survived her universe's destruction, and perhaps, if the impossible proved possible, to somehow restore what had been lost. The ascension of Son Goku to Omni-King just might be that chance. In Universe 3, a realm known for its technological advancement, alarms blared throughout the central research facility of Planet Mecha. Citizens scurried between monitoring stations, their cybernetically enhanced bodies moving with mechanical precision as they responded to unprecedented readings on their dimensional sensors. At the center of this controlled chaos stood Nyx, her slender form distinguished by the complete absence of cybernetic enhancements that marked most of her species. Where Urs had willingly replaced organic components with technological improvements, she had stubbornly remained fully biological, earning both ridicule and reluctant respect from her peers. "The dimensional fluctuations are stabilizing," she announced, her fingers dancing across holographic displays that surrounded her like a cocoon of light. "But the energy signature has completely transformed." "Analysis," requested the facility's director, his voice produced by synthetic vocal processors. Nyx tilted her head, her unnaturally large eyes, the only visible mutation she permitted herself, reflecting the cascading data. "Something fundamental has changed at the highest level of cosmic governance. These readings suggest." She paused, running the calculations again before continuing. "These addings suggest a replacement of the Omni-King." Murmurs of disbelief spread through the facility. Even in Universe 3, where religion had largely been replaced by quantifiable science, the Omni-King presented an acknowledged constant, the underlying foundation of existence itself. "Impossible," the director stated. "Our sensors must be malfunctioning." "They are not," Nyx insisted, gesturing at the converging data points. "Look at the harmonic resonance patterns. The multiversal constants are shifting to accommodate a new fundamental frequency. That can only happen if." The director raised a metallic hand, silencing her. "Your conclusions require verification by the Council of Empirical Truth. Until then, this information remains classified." Nyx nodded outwardly but had already determined her course of action. The council would debate for months while the most significant cosmic event in recorded history unfolded. She had spent her career developing technology to observe phenomena beyond conventional scientific instruments. If the Omni-King had truly been replaced, her life's work might finally achieve validation. She needed to get closer to the source, somehow. In the endless darkness between universes, where even divine light struggled to penetrate, something ancient stirred from eons of dormancy. Not a being in any conventional sense, but a primordial awareness had predated the concept of individual existence. It had no name for itself, though in the fragmentary records of the earliest civilizations, it had been called many things: the Devourer, the Unmaker, the Void that hungers. In the divine archives, sealed texts referred to it simply as Lord Void, the antithesis of creation. For countless ages, it had been contained by barriers established by the original Omni-Kings. Now, those barriers weakened as cosmic authority transferred to a new vessel, an incomplete vessel, unsuited to contain the fullness of Omni-King power. Through cracks no wider than quantum uncertainties, tendrils of nothingness began to seep into the established universes. Infinitesimal at first, they nonetheless represented the first breach in the multiverse's defenses since its creation. In certain sensitive spots throughout the 12 universes, reality flickered momentarily, objects briefly losing substance, living beings experiencing seconds of non-existence before snapping back to normalcy. Minor anomalies, easily dismissed by most as tricks of perception. But in one particular location, a seemingly empty region of space in Universe 6, a small tear remained open. A pinprick wound in the fabric of reality. And through this wound, something impossible emerged. A single drop of absolute nothingness, a paradoxical substance that negated everything it touched. It fell onto the barren surface of an uninhabited planetoid. Where it landed, matter simply ceased to exist, leaving a perfectly spherical void 2 meters in diameter. The void did not grow, but neither did it diminish. A permanent absence in the fabric of existence. The first footprint of Lord Void had been planted in the multiverse. Back at the Omni-King's palace, preparations for the Ascension ritual had begun in earnest. The remaining structure had been stabilized, though certain wings and chambers remained in a state of flux, reflecting the incomplete transfer of power. Goku stood in the center of the ritual chamber, a vast spherical space that seemed to exist simultaneously in all 12 universes. The walls, if they could be called walls, showed shifting views of distant galaxies, nebulae, and celestial phenomena that defied mortal categorization. The Grand Priest and 12 angels, including Whis and Sleria, had arranged themselves in a perfect circle around him. Their staffs were raised, creating a lattice of energy that contained the wild fluctuations of power still emanating from Goku's partially transformed body. The ritual has 3 phases, the Grand Priest explained. Dissolution, where your mortal limitations are removed. Expansion, where your consciousness is extended to encompass multiversal awareness. And reconstitution, where your essential self is stabilized within your new existence. That sounds intense, Goku observed, trying to maintain his characteristic optimism despite growing apprehension. It is traditionally performed over the course of 3 centuries. The Grand Priest continued, "We will attempt to complete it in 3 days. 3 days, Goku exclaimed. But what about my family? They'll wonder where Time flows differently here, the Grand Priest interrupted gently. When the ritual is complete, you will have the ability to return to any point in time you wish, within certain limitations. Your family need not experience your absence at all, if that is your choice." Goku nodded, somewhat reassured. "What about the fighting stuff? Will I still be able to train and get stronger?" A flicker of something, perhaps amusement, perhaps concern, passed across the Grand Priest's face. The concept of stronger becomes complex at your new level of existence. But yes, combat in various forms remains accessible, though the nature of such encounters will differ from your previous experience. As long as I can still fight, I guess I can handle the rest, Goku said with determined cheerfulness. Sleria made a small sound that might have been a suppressed sigh. The responsibilities of the Omni-King extend far beyond combat, she noted, her melodious voice carrying a hint of exasperation. The multiverse requires governance, judgment, and maintenance. Yeah, that's the part I'm not so sure about, Goku admitted. I've never been good at making rules or telling people what to do. Perhaps that is not entirely disadvantageous, the Grand Priest said cryptically. Now, we must begin. The longer your power remains unstable, the greater the risk to multiversal integrity. The angels adjusted their positions slightly, their staffs glowing with increased intensity. The Grand Priest floated to a position directly before Goku, his expression solemn. "Son Goku of Universe 7, he intoned formally, do you accept the mantle of Omni-King? With all its powers and responsibilities, from this moment until your ascension beyond this plane of existence." Goku took a deep breath. Despite his misgivings, he understood the stakes. If the multiverse needed an Omni-King to remain stable, and if the Xenos had chosen him specifically, refusing wasn't really an option. "I accept," he said, his voice steadier than he expected. The Grand Priest nodded once. "Then let the dissolution begin." He touched the tip of his staff to Goku's forehead. Instantly, agony beyond anything Goku had ever experienced coursed through his body. It felt as if every atom of his being was being pulled apart, examined individually, and then scattered across the cosmos. He tried to scream but had no mouth. Tried to collapse but had no body. His consciousness stretched and tore, fragments of his identity dispersing like leaves in a hurricane. The Saiyan warrior, the husband, the father, the friend, the rival, all the Sei aspects of Son Goku separated from each other, losing cohesion, threatening to dissolve into the cosmic background. Through the haze of disintegration, Goku desperately clung to his core self, the essential qualities that defined him beyond titles and relationships. His determination, his compassion, his love of challenge, his belief in second chances. These he gathered close, refusing to let him scatter despite the overwhelming pressure of dissolution. How long this phase lasted, he couldn't tell. Time had become meaningless, a concept belonging to a reality he no longer fully inhabited. But eventually, the disintegration slowed, then stopped. Goku existed as pure consciousness, unbound by physical form yet somehow retaining his fundamental nature. The first phase is complete, the Grand Priest's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. You have successfully maintained your core identity despite dissolution. Many candidates fail at this stage, losing themselves entirely to cosmic awareness. Goku couldn't respond in any conventional sense, but a pulse of acknowledgement emanated from his disembodied consciousness. Now begins the expansion, the Grand Priest continued. Open yourself to the multiverse. But remember who you are. The second phase proved even more challenging than the first. As Goku's awareness expanded beyond the ritual chamber, beyond the palace, beyond Universe 7 itself, the sheer volume of information threatened to overwhelm what remained of his identity. He perceived trillions of lives simultaneously, every joy, every sorrow, every birth, every death across 12 universes. He witnessed stars forming and dying, civilizations rising and falling, all happening in what seemed like a single moment of cosmic time. The temptation to lose himself in this infinite sea of experiences was nearly irresistible. How simple it would be to dilute his consciousness across the cosmos, becoming everything and nothing simultaneously. Again, Goku fought against dissolution, focusing on what made him unique. He thought of specific moments from his life, sparring with Krillin as a child, facing Frieza on Namek, holding Gohan for the first time, the quiet evenings with Chi-Chi. These memories anchored him, preventing total dispersal of his identity. Gradually, he learned to filter the overwhelming input, focusing on specific points of interest maintaining peripheral awareness of the whole. It was similar, in some ways, to sensing key signatures during battle, a skill he had mastered long ago, now applied on a multiversal scale. Remarkable, came the Grand Priest's voice again. You've achieved in hours what takes most candidates decades. Your previous experiences with Ultra Instinct may have prepared you better than anticipated. The final phase, reconstitution, proved to be the most disorienting. Having expanded to encompass multiversal awareness, Goku now had to re-establish a central point of consciousness while maintaining his expanded perception. He needed to be both infinite and finite simultaneously, existing everywhere while maintaining a primary presence in the Omni-King's realm. This paradoxical state defied logical understanding. Goku stopped trying to comprehend it intellectually and instead relied on his intuitive grasp of energy manipulation. He visualized his consciousness as similar to Ki, something that could be condensed or expanded as needed without changing its essential nature. Slowly, painfully, he pulled himself back together while maintaining threads of awareness throughout the multiverse. A new form took shape around his consciousness, not his original body, but something that approximated it while incorporating his new divine nature. When Goku finally opened his physical eyes again, he found himself floating in the center of the ritual chamber. The angels had lowered their staffs, their expressions showing varying degrees of surprise and, in some cases, reluctant admiration. The ritual is complete, the Grand Priest announced, his voice betraying a hint of genuine astonishment. In 3 hours, you have accomplished what was expected to take 3 days. 3 hours. Goku looked down at his new form. His appearance had changed subtly, his hair and eyes shifting colors continuously, cycling through all possible variations as if unable to settle on a single form. His clothing had stabilized into something resembling his familiar GI but made of material that seemed woven from condensed starlight. It felt like forever. Temporal perception becomes fluid at higher levels of existence. The Grand Priest explained, "You will adjust eventually." Goku flexed his fingers experimentally, watching as reality itself seemed to ripple in response to his movements. "So what happens now?" "Now," Sleria interjected, stepping forward with a formal bow that didn't quite mask her lingering skepticism, "you must learn to govern." "Govern," Goku repeated, the word feeling foreign on his tongue. "The multiverse requires administration," she continued. "Cosmic balance must be maintained, divine hierarchies respected, mortal civilizations guided appropriately. There are protocols, traditions, and responsibilities that have existed since the dawn of creation." Goku's expression must have betrayed his dismay, because the Grand Priest raised a hand to pause Sleria's explanation. "Perhaps we might begin with a more practical approach," he suggested. "Son Goku learns best through experience rather than instruction." With respect, Sleria countered, "Improvisatio in multiversal governance could have catastrophic consequences." The Grand Priest considered her words before responding. "You are not incorrect, Sleria. However, the Xenos selected Son Goku specifically, despite being aware of his unconventional nature. Perhaps that nature is precisely what is required in the coming era." Before the discussion could continue, a tremor shook the palace, different from the previous disturbances. Sharper somehow. Several angels looked around in alarm, their typical serenity momentarily disturbed. What was that? Goku asked, instinctively dropping into a fighting stance. The Grand Priest's expression darkened. Something that should not be possible. Another tremor, stronger than the first. This time, Goku perceived something beyond the physical disturbance, a wrongness that defied description, as if reality itself was being unraveled at its edges. The seal, Whis whispered, his normally composed features showing genuine concern. It's weakening. What seal? Goku demanded, looking between the angels. The Grand Priest and Sleria exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. There are aspects of cosmic history that are restricted knowledge. The Grand Priest finally said. Suffice to say, the Omni-Kings serve not only as rulers but as living barriers against certain entities that existed before the current iteration of the multiverse. You mean there are things out there stronger than the Omni-Kings? Goku asked, his Saiyan instincts simultaneously terrified and excited by the possibility. Not stronger, Sleria clarified. Different, antithetical. The Omni-Kings represent creation and existence. These entities represent the opposite. A third tremor struck, this one violent enough to crack the floor beneath them. Through the fissure, Goku glimpsed not the lower levels of the palace, but an absolute darkness that seemed to drink in light itself. The incomplete transfer, the Grand Priest murmured. Your abbreviated ritual, the barriers are not yet properly established. So tell me how to fix it, Goku said, determination replacing confusion. This, at least, was familiar territory, a threat to face, a problem to solve. You must establish your divine authority throughout the multiverse, Sleria stated. Your presence must be acknowledged by the gods of destruction, the supreme Kais, and key mortal civilizations. This acknowledgement strengthens the foundations of reality itself. Like a formal introduction tour? Goku asked, trying to simplify the concept. Something like that, the Grand Priest agreed, though his tone suggested the process was far more significant than social visits. Another tremor, another glimpse of that impossible darkness. This time, Goku felt something reaching through the crack, not physically, but a tendril of anti-existence that brushed against his consciousness like the antithesis of thought. We should begin immediately, Whis suggested, his staff glowing as he prepared to open a dimensional passage. Agreed, the Grand Priest said. Sleria will accompany you, son Goku. Her knowledge of protocol will be invaluable. Sleria bowed formally, though Goku didn't miss the flicker of reluctance that crossed her features. It would be my honor to guide the new Omni-King. As preparations for departure began, Goku took a final look at the crack in the floor. It had sealed itself, but a subtle darkness lingered around the edges, like a stain on reality that couldn't quite be removed. Whatever lay beyond the barriers established by the previous Omni-Kings, it had sensed the change in cosmic hierarchy, and it was probing for weaknesses. I hope I'm ready for this, Goku murmured to himself. For perhaps the first time in his life, he wasn't looking forward to meeting a new opponent. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Divine Transformation. Focus, Omni-King Goku. Feel the pulse of Universe 3 and align your consciousness with its unique frequency. Sleria's voice barely penetrated the kaleidoscopic storm raging in Goku's mind. Seated cross-legged in the attunement chamber, a perfect sphere of shifting reality at the heart of what remained of the Omni-King's palace, he struggled to isolate a single universe from the overwhelming cascade of cosmic information. I'm trying, he managed through gritted teeth, but everything keeps bleeding together. 3 days had passed since his partial ascension and abbreviated ritual. The true complexity of his situation had become painfully apparent within hours. While the ritual had successfully bound Omni-King power to his being, his mortal mind lacked the structures needed to properly channel that power. The result was akin to pouring an ocean through a drinking straw. Dangerous to both the vessel and everything surrounding it. Sleria circled him, her staff tracing luminous patterns in the air. Your consciousness is still attempting to process multiversal input using mortal cognitive frameworks. You must allow new structures to form. That's easy for you to say, Goku muttered, a bead of sweat tracking down his temple. You've had billions of years to get used to this stuff. A flicker of something, perhaps amusement, crossed Sleria's normally impassive features. Not quite billions, but significantly longer than your brief mortal span, yes. Nevertheless, the principles remain constant. Perception shapes reality at this level. If you believe you cannot control the input, then indeed you cannot. Goku cracked open one eye to glance at his reluctant instructor. Despite her initial disapproval, Sleria had proven surprisingly patient during these training sessions. Her stern demeanor occasionally softened when he made progress, though she quickly reverted to professional distance whenever he noticed. "Let me try something different," he said, uncrossing his legs and standing. "This sitting still stuff isn't working." Sleria sighed. The Tr. Additional meditative posture has been refined over eons to optimize cosmic attunement. "Yeah, but I'm not traditional," Goku countered with a hint of his old grin. "I've always learned better by doing." Without waiting for permission, he shifted into a familiar stance, feet planted firmly, knees slightly bent, hands positioned as if preparing to gather energy. It was the form he'd used countless times to focus his ki. From his earliest Kamehameha to his most recent divine techniques. "What are you?" Sleria began, then fell silent as energy began to coalesce around Goku. Unlike his previous power manifestations, this energy didn't radiate outward in a conventional aura. Instead, reality itself seemed to bend toward him, cosmic forces spiraling into his form like water circling a drain. The chamber's walls, boundaries between dimensional planes rather than physical surfaces, rippled in response. Goku breathed deeply, applying the same principles he'd used to master Ultra Instinct. Rather than forcing his will upon the universe, he allowed himself to become a conduit, feeling the natural flow of cosmic energy and gently guiding it rather than commanding it. Gradually, the chaotic storm in his mind settled into discernible patterns. The 12 universes separated into distinct streams of awareness, each with its own unique signature. Universe 3 revealed itself as a complex lattice of technological advancement and scientific precision, billions of minds connected through networks of shared knowledge, a collective intelligence evolving toward some unknown pinnacle. "I can see it," Goku whispered, his voice resonating strangely as if speaking from multiple locations simultaneously. "Universe 3, it's like a giant thinking machine, but made of people and planets instead of parts." Sleria's eyes widened slightly. "Remarkable. You've achieved selective multiversal perception using martial arts stances. Fighting is all about understanding energy flow," Goku explained, maintaining his concentration. "This isn't that different, just bigger." He shifted his stance slightly, redirecting his awareness to another cosmic stream. "Universe 6, it feels familiar but different. The Saiyans there are." He paused, perceiving something unexpected. "Wait, something's happening there. Some kind of hole." Sleria moved to his side immediately, her own divine senses expanding. "Show me exactly where you're sensing the disturbance." Goku extended his hand, and reality rippled around his fingers. A window opened in the chamber wall, revealing a distant planetoid eye. Universe 6, unremarkable except for a perfect spherical void that seemed to consume light itself. "That shouldn't exist," Sleria whispered, her composure cracking. "It's a nullification sphere, Matt. And energy converted to absolute nothing." "Is that bad?" Goku asked, though he already knew the answer. The void radiated wrongness in a way that disturbed him on a fundamental level. "It should be impossible," Sleria replied, her voice tense. "The laws of conservation are absolute even at the divine level. Matter and energy can be transformed but never completely negated. Only something beyond the multiverse could produce this effect." Another window opened beside the first, this one showing a similar void in Universe 9, slightly larger than the first. Then another in Universe 2, and another in Universe 12. They're appearing everywhere, Goku realized. Getting bigger too. Sleria's hand tightened on her staff. "We must inform the Grand Priest immediately. This confirms our worst fears. The barriers are weakening, and something is breaking through." Before either could move, the chamber doors slid open to admit Whis, his typically serene expression replaced by uncharacteristic urgency. "Ah, you've noticed them too," he observed, glancing at the observation windows. "The Grand Priest has called an emergency council. All angels, gods of destruction, and supreme Kais are being summoned." "What about my training?" Goku asked. "I'm just starting to get the hang of this perception stuff. I'm afraid cosmic catastrophe takes precedence over personal development," Sleria replied dryly. Besides, this situation directly relates to your incomplete ascension. The voids are symptoms of the weakened barriers your full transformation would reinforce. Goku nodded, his expression growing serious. Then let's finish the ascension ritual. If that's what it takes to stop these void things from spreading, I'm ready. Whis and Sleria exchanged glances. The full ritual requires significantly more preparation, Whis explained gently. Your initial adaptation has been remarkably swift, but the complete transformation is another matter entirely. We don't have time for preparation, Goku insisted, gesturing toward the expanding voids visible through the dimensional windows. If these keep growing, what happens to the people living on those worlds? They cease to exist, Sleria stated bluntly. Not death, complete removal from reality. No afterlife, no reincarnation, no memory of their existence in the minds of others. Absolute erasure. The implications hit Goku with physical force. As a fighter, he had faced death many times without fear, knowing that existence continued beyond physical form. But true non-existence, the complete erasure of self and soul, was a horror beyond his previous comprehension. Then we don't have a choice, he said, his voice hardening with resolve. We do the full ritual now. It could kill you, Sleria warned. Quote, your consciousness might dissipate entirely, leaving nothing but raw Omni-King power unbound by personality or purpose. That scenario might actually prove worse than the current situation. I've beaten worse odds, Goku replied with a confidence that wasn't entirely bravado. Throughout his life, he had repeatedly transcended what others considered possible. Besides, we can't just do nothing while these void things keep spreading. The chamber trembled suddenly, reality shuddering around them. The dimensional windows showed the voids pulsing in unison, expanding briefly before settling back to their previous size. They're growing stronger, Whis observed quietly. Coordinating their activity. That settles it, Goku declared. We're doing the ritual, now. Sleria looked to Whis, who nodded almost imperceptibly. I will inform the Grand Priest of your decision, Whis said, tapping his staff to open a communication channel. As preparations began for the accelerated ascension ritual, Goku found his awareness repeatedly drawn back to the multiplying voids. Something about them tugged at his consciousness, not just their wrongness, but a sense of familiarity he couldn't explain. Almost as if whatever created them was reaching out specifically to him. The thought sent an unfamiliar chill through his newly semi-divine form. In the pocket dimension between universes, Korra felt the boundaries weakening. The familiar membrane separating her hidden sanctuary from established reality had grown thin, more permeable than at any time since her mysterious survival of universal erasure. Now, she whispered to herself, gathering the few possessions that defined her extended existence. A crystal containing the last starlight from her vanished universe, a book written in the forgotten language of her people. And a small circular device of her own creation, designed to locate dimensional fault lines. Korra had survived long enough to recognize cosmic patterns. The scion of a new Omni-King, especially one elevated prematurely, created unique vulnerabilities in the multiversal structure. Most beings would never notice these infinitesimal cracks in reality, but Korra was not most beings. As last survivor of her universe, she existed in a paradoxical state, technically erased yet somehow still present, a ghost haunting the memories of creation itself. This contradiction had granted her unusual perceptions and abilities that even the angels, with their vast knowledge, might not comprehend. She activated her dimensional locator, watching as it projected a lottie of light that mapped the thinning boundaries between her pocket dimension and the multiverse proper. A pulsing node indicated the weakest point, a potential doorway back into established existence. Strange, she murmured, studying the readings. Multiple fracture points, all connected to a central nexus. The pattern was unlike anything she had observed in her centuries of isolation. Something else was exploiting the weakened boundaries, something older and far more dangerous than herself. Korra hesitated, her silver eyes narrowing as she reconsidered her plan. Breaking through now might attract unwanted attention from whatever else was pressing against the boundaries of reality. On the other hand, this might be her only opportunity to escape her limbo state. The decision crystallized, as another tremor shook her pocket dimension, more violent than any previous disturbance. The walls of her sanctuary, constructed from memories and mathematical principles rather than physical material, began dissolving at the edges, revealing glimpses of the absolute nothingness that existed beyond established dimensions. Staying meant certain erasure, this time, perhaps, permanently. Korra pressed her palm against the dimensional locator, channeling her unique energy into the device. It responded with a high-pitched whine, the lattice projection intensifying until it physically manifested as a web of silvery light surrounding her. With a swift motion, she thrust the device toward the weakest boundary point. Reality tore open before her, not into orderly dimensional passage but into chaotic, unstructured possibility. Unlike the angel's controlled dimensional travel, this was raw, dangerous transcendence of cosmic law. Without hesitation, Korra leapt through the rift, pulling it closed behind her with a final burst of energy that consumed her locator device completely. The passage felt like being simultaneously stretched into infinity and compressed into a singularity, an experience that would have destroyed a normal being. Mortal or divine, she emerged in the space between universes proper, still not within any established reality, but now in the recognized transit dimension used by divine beings. Her form stabilized gradually, particles of her essence coalescing from the dimensional trauma of her crossing. As her consciousness fully reintegrated, Korra sensed the gathering of divine powers, angels, gods of destruction, supreme Kais, all converging on the Omni-King's palace. And at the center of this convergence, a power unlike anything she had felt before, familiar in its mortal foundations yet expanding beyond conventional divine parameters. The Saiyan, she whispered, orienting herself toward the overwhelming energy signature. He truly became Omni-King. With careful precision, Korra began navigating the passages between dimensions, moving toward the palace while remaining just outside conventional perception. Her existence as a paradox, a supreme Kai from an Rost universe, granted her a unique advantage. Divine senses weren't calibrated to detect something that technically shouldn't exist. As she drew closer to the palace, however, Korra detected something else moving through the dimensional interstices, something vast and ancient, trailing tendrils of absolute negation through the fabric of reality. Where these tendrils touched, existence itself unraveled, leaving behind perfect voids of nothingness. The legendary adversary of creation itself had awakened. Lord Void had returned. The Ascension Chamber differed from the training room Goku had used previously. Where the Attunement Chamber existed simultaneously in all universes, this space seemed to exist beyond the multiverse itself, a null point from which all reality could be perceived but not directly accessed. The architecture defied mortal understanding, with geometries that changed depending on the angle of observation and surfaces that shifted between solid matter and pure energy. At the center stood a raised dais of crystalline material that pulsed with inner light synchronized to the heartbeat of the multiverse itself. The Grand Priest had positioned himself at the cardinal point designated as beginning, while 12 angels including Whis and Sleria formed a perfect circle around the dais. Their staffs were planted firmly, creating a containment barrier for the immense energies the ritual would unleash. The accelerated ascension is profoundly dangerous, the Grand Priest explained as Goku took his position at the center of the dais. Under normal circumstances, each phase would be separated by periods of integration and stabilization. Proceeding through all phases continuously risks both your individual consciousness and multiversal stability. I understand the risk, Goku replied, his voice steady despite his apprehension. But those void things are spreading. We don't have time to do this the safe way. The Grand Priest nodded once, acknowledging the truth of Goku's assessment. Very well. Remove your outer garments and kneel facing the beginning. Goku complied, stripping down to a simple white undergarment that had manifested with his transformed state. As he knelt on the crystalline surface, he noticed intricate patterns within the material, equations and symbols representing fundamental laws of existence. The full ascension ritual has 7 phases. The Grand Priest continued. You have partially completed the first 3. We will briefly revisit those before proceeding to the remaining 4. He raised his staff, and the angels followed suit, creating a dome of pure white energy around the dais. First, dissolution, the release of mortal limitations. The energy dome pulsed, and Goku felt his partially divine form begin to disintegrate once more. Having experienced this before, he was better prepared, allowing the process to proceed naturally rather than fighting against it. Second, expansion, the extension of consciousness across multiversal awareness. Quote, again, Goku's perception expanded exponentially, encompassing all 12 universes simultaneously. The experience remained overwhelming but no longer threatened to shatter his sense of self completely. Third, reconstitution, the stabilization of essential identity within expanded awareness. Goku's form rematerialized, though less substantially than before. He existed now as a hybrid, neither fully physical nor entirely energy-based, balanced between mortal and divine states. The Grand Priest paused, studying Goku's condition with ancient eyes that perceived far more than mere physical state. Apparently satisfied, he continued. Fourth, harmonic alignment, the synchronization of personal energy with the multiversal frequency. The dais beneath Goku began to vibrate, producing a tone that existed beyond conventional sound, a fundamental note that resonated with the very fabric of existence. The sensation was indescribable, neither pleasure nor pain but something transcending both. Every particle of his being vibrated in response, forcing his energy signature to adjust its frequency to match the cosmic harmony. Goku gasped as new perceptions unfolded. He became aware not just of current reality but of potential realities, paths not taken, choices unmade, futures unrealized. The multiverse revealed itself not as 12 discrete univers but as infinite variations constrained into 12 primary expressions. Fifth, authority imprinting, the encoding of divine will upon the cosmic structure. This phase hit Goku with unexpected force. Unlike previous steps, which had primarily affected his perception, this stage required action. He needed to consciously impress his intent upon reality itself, establishing his will as a foundation stone of existence. I don't understand what to do, he managed, his voice echoing strangely through the chamber. Sleria broke protocol to speak. You must define your purpose as Omni-King. Hat principle will guide your governance. Goku struggled with the concept. He had never sought power for its own sake, never desired to rule or govern others. His lifetime of battles had been motivated by personal growth and protecting those he cared about, not by ambition or ideology. What principle could possibly guide him as ruler of everything? As he wrestled with the question, memories surfaced. Not just his own but those he had glimpsed during his expanded awareness. Civilizations rising and falling, tyrants imposing their will, freedom fighters sacrificing everything for a chance at self-determination, parents protecting children, friends standing together against impossible odds. Throughout the multiverse, across countless worlds and species, certain values remained constant: the desire to grow, to choose one's path, to protect loved ones, to face challenges and emerge stronger. Freedom, Goku said finally, the word resonating through the chamber with unexpected power. Everyone should have the chance to choose their own way, to get stronger, to protect what matters to them. The dais beneath him flared brilliantly, cosmic energy surging upward through his form. The assembled angels murmured in surprise as the ritual chamber itself seemed to respond to Goku's stated principle, reality reconfiguring subtly around his intent. Interesting choice, the Grand Priest observed, his tone neutral yet somehow approving. Not control, not perfection, not balance, but freedom. Is that wrong? Goku asked, suddenly concerned. There is no wrong at this level, the Grand Priest replied. The multiverse adapts to the Omni-King's guiding principle. Previous sovereigns chose different foundations: order, harmony, knowledge. Your selection will shape cosmic development accordingly. Before Goku could fully process the implications, the Grand Priest continued the ritual. Sixth, dimensional anchoring, the establishment of presence across all planes of existence. This phase proved the most physically demanding yet. Goku felt himself being simultaneously stretched across infinite dimensional planes and compressed into the singularity of his individual consciousness. The paradoxical state threatened to tear his being apart at a level more fundamental than physical matter. He howled in agony as his essence struggled to maintain coherence while expanding beyond conventional dimensional constraints. Every instinct screamed to resist, to pull back, to maintain boundaries, but the ritual demanded the opposite. He had to surrender to the expansion while somehow maintaining his core identity. Drawing on his experience with Ultra Instinct, Goku forced himself to stop fighting the process. Instead of resisting the dimensional anchoring, he embraced it, allowing himself to exist across multiple planes simultaneously while maintaining his central consciousness as a focal point. Gradually, the tearing sensation subsided, replaced by a new awareness of dimensional layers. Goku perceived the conventional four dimensions, but also others, conceptual realms where thought manifested as reality, potential spaces where probability functioned as geography, timeless zones where past, present and future existed simultaneously. The final phase approaches, the Grand Priest announced. 7th. Power integration, the complete fusion of Omni-King authority with personal essence. The angels adjusted their positions, their staffs glowing with increased intensity as they reinforced the containment barrier. Even the Grand Priest's expression showed subtlety. En Sion, the first hint of concern Goku had witnessed from the supremely composed being. This phase carries the greatest risk, the Grand Priest warned. The full power of the Omni-King will transfer to your being. If your consciousness cannot contain it, the unbound power could devastate the multiverse. Goku nodded his understanding, bracing himself for what was to come. Throughout his life, he had repeatedly pushed beyond supposed limitations, breaking barriers that others considered insurmountable. This would be his greatest challenge yet, but the principle remained the same. Overcome, adapt, transcend. Begin the integration, he said firmly. The Grand Priest raised his staff high, bringing it down sharply against the crystal dais. A column of pure white light erupted upward, engulfing Goku completely. The angel's barrier contracted, focusing the energy inward, channeling the full weight of Omni-King authority into Goku's expanded consciousness. The sensation defied description, infinite power compressing into finite form, omniscience filtering through individual perspective, eternity contained within temporal awareness. Every transformation Goku had previously experienced, Super Saiyan, God, Ultra Instinct, paled in comparison to this fundamental restructuring of his being. He could feel his consciousness fraying at the edges, threatening to disintegrate under the immense pressure. Desperately, he clung to his core identity, the simple fighter from Earth who valued freedom, challenge, and protecting others. These principles became his anchor as cosmic power threatened to overwhelm his individual self. Just as Goku felt his grip on existence beginning to slip, an unexpected disturbance rippled through the ascension chamber. The containment barrier flickered, energy patterns destabilizing as something external interfered with the ritual. Something's breaking through, Sleria called out, her staff vibrating violently as she struggled to maintain her section of the barrier. The Grand Priest's eyes widened in alarm. Impossible. Nothing should be able to penetrate this chamber during an ascension ritual. Yet the evidence proved otherwise as reality itself tore open at the boundary of the chamber. Through the rift poured absolute darkness, not mere absence of light but active negation of existence itself. The void spread rapidly across the chamber floor, dissolving everything it touched into nothingness. Lord Void, the Grand Priest whispered, genuine fear crossing his ancient features. It has found a way through. The angels abandoned their ritual positions, shifting to defensive formation as tendrils of nothingness probed the chamber. Their staffs projected barriers of pure creation energy, the antithesis of the encroaching void, but the darkness pressed forward relentlessly. Caught in the interrupted ritual, Goku found himself in a perilous state. His consciousness expanded beyond normal parameters but the integration of Omni-King power incomplete. He existed in a dangerous middle ground, neither mortal nor fully divine, vulnerable to forces from both realms. Yet this precarious position granted him unique perception. As Lord Void's essence invaded the chamber, Goku sensed something beneath its mindless hunger, an ancient intelligence guiding the nothingness, directing it specifically toward him. It wanted the Omni-King power, or rather, wanted to prevent its proper integration. The attack had been precisely timed to interrupt the ritual at its most critical juncture. With the ritual broken, cosmic energy surged chaotically around Goku. The angels fought desperately to contain both this unbound power and the encroaching void, but they were fighting a losing battle on two fronts. The ritual must be completed, Sleria shouted over the cacophony of clashing energies. If the Omni-King power remains unbound, it will react catastrophically with the void essence. "We cannot maintain the proper conditions," the Grand Priest replied, his usual composure slipping further as he projected barriers against multiple void tendrils simultaneously. "The chamber is compromised." Goku watched the struggle from his unique perspective, partially outside conventional reality, seeing patterns and connections invisible to others. The void wasn't just attacking randomly, it followed specific paths, targeting weak points in the chamber's metaphysical structure. This wasn't mindless destruction, it was strategy. "It's intelligent," he called out, his voice distorting as it passed through multiple dimensional layers. "The void knows exactly what it's doing." The Grand Priest glanced sharply at Goku, surprise evident in his ancient eyes. "You can perceive its intent. That should be impossible for one still in transition." A tendril of void shot directly toward Goku, moving faster than the angels could intercept. Acting on instinct honed through countless battles, Goku didn't attempt to dodge. Instead, he reached out. With his partially integrated divine power, not to attack but to understand. The moment his energy touched the void, agonizing cold shot through his being. The nothingness attempted to consume him, to erase his existence from the cosmic record, but something unexpected happened. Rather than being destroyed, Goku's consciousness expanded into the void itself, perceiving its fundamental nature. "It's afraid," he gasped, maintaining the connection despite the excruciating pain. "The void fears something, about me specifically." The Grand Priest's eyes widened. "Of course, your guiding principle, freedom. Lord Void represents absolute determinism, the negation of possibility itself. Your chosen foundation for governance stands in direct opposition to its fundamental nature. Understand." Ing bloomed in Goku's expanded awareness. This wasn't merely an attack. It was a desperate attempt to prevent a specific future, one where his unique approach to Omni-King authority might threaten Lord Void's very existence. With this realization came clarity. The ritual didn't need perfect conditions, it needed perfect intent. Goku had been approaching the integration passively, allowing the power to flow into him. Instead, he needed to actively claim it, to match his will against the void's determination. "Everyone get back," he shouted, rising to his feet on the crystalline dais. "I know what to do." The angels hesitated, looking to the Grand Priest for direction. After a moment's consideration, he nodded sharply. "Fall back to secondary positions," he commanded. "Maintain containment from outer perimeters." As the angels retreated, forming a larger circle around the chamber, Goku stood alone at the center of the maelstrom. Void tendrils converged on him from all sides, seeking to erase him before the integration could complete. The unbound Omni-King power swirled chaotically around him, raw creation energy lacking direction or purpose. Drawing on every battle he had ever fought, every transformation he had ever achieved, Goku centered himself in perfect stillness. Rather than fighting either force, he would become the conduit between them, the bridge uniting infinite creation potential with his individual will. "I accept this power," he declared, his voice carrying unexpected authority. "Not to control, but to protect. Not to rule, but to preserve freedom across all existence." The swirling energy responded immediately, spiraling inward toward his form. Void tendrils lunged simultaneously, racing to intercept the power before it could integrate with Goku's consciousness. In that critical moment, something unexpected happened. A silver barrier manifested between Goku and the encroaching void, not projected by the angels or the Grand Priest, but by someone else entirely. A feminine figure materialized at the edge of the dais, tall and slender with violet skin and flowing white hair. Silver sigils covered her arms and face, glowing with power that shouldn't exist in the current multiverse. "Complete your ascension, Saiyan," she called out, her voice strained as she maintained the barrier against the void's assault. "I'll hold it back." "Who are you?" Goku asked, even as he continued gathering the Omni-King power. "Someone who shouldn't exist," she replied with a grim smile. "Hurry, I cannot maintain this barrier for long." The Grand Priest stared at the newcomer in evident shock. "Impossible. You're from an erased universe," she finished for him. "We can discuss paradoxes later, assuming we survive." Goku didn't waste the opportunity her intervention provided. With renewed focus, he drew the Omni-King power fully into himself, accepting not just the energy but the responsibility it represented. Unlike his previous transformations, This wasn't merely an increase in strength, it was a fundamental change in the nature of his existence. The power suffused every aspect of his being, rewriting the fundamental code of his reality. Goku felt his consciousness expanding to encompass all existence while simultaneously remaining anchored in his individual identity. The paradox resolved itself as he accepted both states as equally valid. He was both the simple fighter from Earth and the divine sovereign of all reality. Light erupted from his transformed body, pure creation energy radiating outward in a sphere of blinding intensity. Where this light touched the void tendrils, they recoiled as if burned, their nothingness temporarily overwhelmed by the concentrated essence of existence itself. The mysterious woman collapsed to her knees as her barrier shattered. But her intervention had bought the crucial seconds needed. Goku's transformation completed in a final surge of cosmic energy that rippled outward across the multiverse, momentarily connecting all 12 universes in a single harmonious note. When the light finally dimmed enough for vision to return, Goku stood transformed at the center of the dais. His appearance had both changed and remained the same, still recognizably the Saiyan warrior, but now emanating an aura of divine authority that transcended conventional power. His eyes shifted continuously between normal black, the teal of Super Saiyan, and something entirely new, a prismatic display that contained all possible colors simultaneously. The void had retreated, its tendrils withdrawing through the dimensional rifts it had created. These rifts sealed themselves as Goku's newly integrated power reinforced the fabric of reality, restoring the barriers between the multiverse and the nothingness beyond. The angels slowly lowered their staffs, their expressions showing varying degrees of astonishment. Even the Grand Priest appeared momentarily at a loss for words, an unprecedented occurrence in cosmic history. Goku took a tentative step forward, adjusting to his fully transformed state. Each movement rippled through multiple dimensions simultaneously, reality itself responding to his presence with subtle adjustments. He looked toward the mysterious woman who had intervened at the critical moment, finding her still kneeling, visibly exhausted. "Thank you," he said simply, extending a hand to help her up. "You really saved us there." She accepted his assistance with visible surprise, as if unaccustomed to direct contact. "You completed the integration much faster than I anticipated. Impressive for a mortal, former mortal, I should say." The Grand Priest approached cautiously, his gaze fixed on the violet-skinned woman. "You are Korra, Supreme Kai of Universe 13, a reality erased before the current cycle of creation." "Was erased," she corrected, straightening to her full height, which nearly matched Goku's. "Yet here I stand, a cosmic impossibility. A paradox with no resolution. Your existence should not be possible," Sleria stated, joining them with staff held ready, not quite threatening but certainly wary. "Many things that should not be possible seem to be happening lately." Korra replied with a sardonic smile. "The ascension of a mortal to Omni-King. The return of Lord Void. The weakening of multiversal barriers. Perhaps impossible is a concept we should reconsider." Goku studied her with new perception, seeing beyond physical form to the unique energy signature that defined her being. Unlike other divine entities, Korra's essence contained a curious emptiness at its core, not the destructive nothingness of Lord Void, but a space where her connection to her original universe should exist. "You're not connected to anything," he observed with newfound insight. "Everyone else has ties to their universe, but you're free-floating." Korra's silver eyes widened slightly. "Your perception is remarkably acute for one so newly ascended." She inclined her head in acknowledgement. "You are correct. When my universe was erased, all connections should have been severed and my existence terminated. Yet somehow, I survived, disconnected, adrift, but still conscious." "How long?" Goku asked. "Since before your mortal grandparents were born," she replied. "I have existed in the spaces between universes, neither fully real nor entirely erased, until today. The disruption caused by your interrupted ascension created enough instability for me to fully manifest in established reality again." The Grand Priest's expression remained carefully neutral. "Your intervention was fortuitous, though it raises significant questions about the nature of universal erasure and cosmic constants." "Questions that can wait," Goku interjected, sensing tension building between the Grand Priest and Korra. His newly expanded awareness perceived undercurrents of ancient history and unresolved conflicts. "Right now, We need to figure out what those void things are and how to stop them. His practical focus seemed to surprise everyone present. Perhaps they had expected his ascension to Omni-King to fundamentally change his straightforward approach to problems. Korra was the first to recover, a hint of genuine amusement crossing her features. Practical as expected from a warrior. Yes, Lord Void represents a more immediate concern than my paradoxical existence. Just, Goku, is fine. He corrected automatically. All this, Lord, stuff feels weird. Sleria sighed audibly. Protocol dictates proper forms of address when interacting with the Omni-King. Protocol can evolve, the Grand Priest stated unexpectedly. The multiverse now has an Omni-King who was recently mortal. Certain adjustments may be appropriate. Goku flashed a grateful smile at the Grand Priest before returning his attention to more pressing matters. These void spots are appearing across all the universes. I could feel more forming even during the Ascension ritual. They will continue to spread. Korra confirmed grimly. Lord Void has awakened and sensed vulnerability in the cosmic structure. The interruption of your ritual may have been repelled, but it achieved its purpose, demonstrating that the new Omni-King can be challenged. Then I'll just have to prove him wrong, Goku stated with the simple confidence that had defined his approach to every previous opponent. The Grand Priest studied him thoughtfully. Your integration appears remarkably complete despite the interrupted ritual. How do you feel, Omni-King Goku? Goku considered the question, taking inventory of his transformed state. Different but still me. Like I've gone Super Saiyan for the first time again, but way more intense. I can feel everything. All 12 universes at once, every living thing, every star, every planet. It's overwhelming but not painful anymore. He demonstrated by casually opening a viewing portal with a gesture, focusing it on Earth, specifically his home on Mount Paozu. Through the portal, he could see Chi-Chi hanging laundry in the yard, unaware of the cosmic drama unfolding dimensions away. The sight brought a mixture of fondness and newfound distance. His connection to his mortal life simultaneously precious and remote. Your consciousness has successfully adapted to multiversal awareness while maintaining individual identity, the Grand Priest observed. Quite remarkable, especially given the accelerated process and external interference. Sleria approached cautiously, her professional assessment temporarily overriding her personal reservations. Your energy patterns have stabilized into proper Omni-King configuration, though with unique variations I haven't observed in previous sovereigns. The Saiyan physiological foundation, Korra suggested, studying Goku with evident fascination. It appears to have integrated with divine power rather than being replaced by it. Most interesting. So what happens now? Goku asked, closing the viewing portal with another gesture. How do we deal with this Lord Void? The Grand Priest's expression grew solemn. Lord Void cannot be defeated in conventional terms. It existed before the multi-verse itself, the primordial nothingness from which creation emerged. The original Omni-Kings didn't destroy it but rather contained it, establishing barriers between established reality and the void beyond. Those barriers are now compromised, Sleria added. Your incomplete ascension created vulnerabilities that Lord Void exploited. Though you've now completed the transformation, the damage remains, cracks in the foundation of reality itself. Then we repair the cracks, Goku said simply. Korra laughed, a genuine sound of surprised amusement. Just like that, repair the fundamental structure of multiversal reality. Why not? Goku replied with a shrug that somehow didn't diminish his divine presence. If the previous Omni-Kings built these barriers, I should be able to fix them now that I have the same power, right? The Grand Priest and Sleria exchanged glances that contained volumes of unspoken communication. Finally, the Grand Priest responded. In principle, yes. However, the original barriers were established immediately after the multiverse's creation, when reality was still malleable. The current structure has solidified over billions of years, making fundamental modifications considerably more challenging. I've never backed down from a challenge, Goku stated, his confident grin momentarily overshadowing the divine gravitas of his new status. Korra studied him with increased interest. Your optimism is either profoundly naive or surprisingly insightful. Perhaps both simultaneously. Before anyone could respond, a tremor shook the chamber, milder than The previous disturbances but accompanied by a distinctive shifting of dimensional planes that signaled continued degradation of cosmic barriers. "We're running out of time for theoretical discussions," Goku observed. "We need to act now." Quote, with newfound authority, he turned to address the assembled divine beings. "The Grand Priest will coordinate defensive measures across all 12 universes. Any sign of these void spots needs to be reported immediately." He turned to Sleria. "I need to understand everything about how the original barriers worked. You mentioned being keeper of the divine archives. Can you access the original designs?" Surprised by his direct and practical approach, Sleria nodded. "There are sealed records from the creation era. As Omni-King, you now have authority to access them." "Good. Let's start there." Goku then faced Korra. "You've survived outside normal reality. That experience might help us understand how these cracks in the barriers work. Will you help?" Korra appeared momentarily taken aback by being directly included in the planning. After a brief hesitation, she inclined her head. "My experience may indeed prove useful, though I make no guarantees. Cosmic paradoxes aren't noted for their predictability." "That's good enough for me," Goku replied with a smile that seemed to momentarily disorient her. The Grand Priest observed this exchange with an unreadable expression before speaking. "A most unconventional approach to cosmic crisis management, Omni-King Goku. But perhaps appropriate given the unprecedented nature of our situation." Another tremor, slightly stronger than the last, emphasized the urgency of their circumstances. "I'll open a passage to the chronal archives," Sleria announced, raising her staff to create a dimensional doorway. Goku nodded and turned to follow her, then paused, looking back at the Grand Priest. "Oh, one more thing. Can you send word to my family on Earth? Let them know I'm okay but might be busy for a while. I don't want them to worry." The casual request, so mundane amidst cosmic catastrophe, prompted a rare smile from the Grand Priest. "Consider it done, Omni-King Goku." As Goku followed Sleria toward the archives, Korra fell into step beside him, studying his profile with undisguised curiosity. "You continue to surprise, Saiyan. Most beings granted cosmic authority immediately forget their mortal connections." "That's not who I am," Goku replied simply. "No matter how much power I get, I'm still me. Just a bigger version now. A philosophy that may prove either your greatest strength or your ultimate limitation," Korra observed. "I look forward to discovering which." Sleria glanced back at them, her expression carefully neutral despite the subtle tension in her posture. The dynamic between the newly ascended Omni-King and the paradoxical Kai clearly unsettled her, though her professional demeanor remained intact. "The chronal archives exist partially outside conventional time," she explained as they approached the dimensional doorway. "Information within may appear differently to each observer, reflecting varying perspectives on cosmic history. Please remain close to avoid temporal displacement." Goku nodded, his expression growing more serious as they prepared to enter the archives. Despite his outward confidence, he felt the weight of responsibility settling more heavily on his shoulders with each passing moment. The multiverse faced a threat unlike any he had encountered before, not an opponent to be defeated through superior strength or fighting skill, but a fundamental force of uncreation that threatened the very fabric of existence. As Omni-King, the responsibility for protecting all reality now rested primarily with him. The thought was simultaneously terrifying and clarifying. Throughout his life, Goku had fought to protect what he valued: his family, his friends, his home. The scale had changed dramatically, but the principle remained the same. With renewed determination, he stepped through the dimensional doorway, ready to face whatever challenges awaited on the other side. The fighter from Earth had become sovereign of the multiverse, but at his core, he remained a defender of life and freedom. The battle against Lord Void had only just begun. In Universe 3, the central research facility of Planet Mecha had descended into controlled chaos. Alarms blared continuously as dimensional sensors detected increasing anomalies throughout their region of space. Scientists moved with mechanical precision between monitoring stations, their cybernetically enhanced bodies functioning at peak efficiency despite the mounting crisis. At the center of this activity stood Nyx, her completely organic form a stark contrast to her technologically integrated colleagues. Her large, luminous eyes, the only visible modification she permitted herself, reflected cascading data from surrounding holographic displays. Dimensional breach in Sector 7 Alpha, she announced, her fingers manipulating complex equations that predicted the anomaly's growth pattern. Perfect spherical void, 2 meters in diameter, expanding at approximately 0.03 microns per standard time unit. Quote, containment protocol, inquired the facility director, his synthetic voice betraying no emotion despite the unprecedented nature of their discoveries. Ineffective, Nix replied, studying the latest sensor readings. Our highest energy containment fields pass through the anomaly without resistance. It's not just absorbing the energy, it's negating it completely. Conservation laws appear locally suspended. Murmurs spread through the facility, even among the hyper-rational scientists of Universe 3, such fundamental violations of physical law provoke disquiet. The director raised a metallic hand, silencing the room. The Council of Empirical Truth has classified this phenomenon under Extinction Potential Category Alpha, he announced. All data is now restricted to Omega-level clearance. Research will continue under sealed protocols. Nix straightened, her expression hardening. With respect, Director, classification restricts our ability to collaborate across institutions. This phenomenon clearly transcends conventional physics. We need diverse perspectives. The Council's decision is final, the Director stated flatly. Unauthorized dissemination of data will result in memory recalibration. The threat hung in the air. Memory recalibration represented the most severe punishment in Universe 3's scientific community, effectively era. Singer researchers accumulated knowledge and experience. For beings who valued information above all else, it was equivalent to partial death. Nix nodded stiffly, returning to her monitoring station. While her mind raced through possibilities, the readings had shown something beyond the void itself, a massive surge of energy from the center of all realities, followed by a rippling effect across all 12 universes. The pattern suggested a fundamental shift in cosmic governance. Her specialized equipment had detected what others missed, a unique energy signature embedded within the cosmic ripple. Distinctly biological in origin despite its divine scale, something, or someone, with a living, cellular structure had somehow ascended to a level of power that affected all existence. Fascinating, she murmured, isolating this signature for further analysis while carefully ensuring her actions remained unobserved by facility security systems. For years, Nix had developed theoretical models suggesting that mortal and divine energy could integrate more completely than currently understood. Her research had been dismissed as bordering on mysticism, heresy in the rigorously empirical culture of Universe 3. These new readings might finally validate her controversial theories. A decision crystallized in her mind. The void anomalies represented an existential threat, but also an unprecedented research opportunity. If her theories about mortality and divinity were correct, understanding the biological signature within the cosmic ripple might provide insights into the nature of the void itself. She needed access to the source, and that meant finding a way to reach the center of all realities, where the Omni-King resided. Under cover of the facility's ongoing crisis response, Nix activated a subroutine in her personal research system, an unauthorized program designed to identify weaknesses in interdimensional boundaries. If conventional paths to the divine realms remained restricted, perhaps the current instability in cosmic structure might provide alternative routes. As data streamed across her private display, a small smile curved her lips. The analysis confirmed her hypothesis. Microscopic fractures in dimensional boundaries were appearing throughout Universe 3, most too small for conventional detection but perfectly visible to her specialized equipment. With proper calibration, one of these fractures might provide passage to the divine realms, or at least close enough for her to gather critical data. The risk was enormous, but for a scientist like Nix, the potential knowledge outweighed personal safety concerns. Preparing detailed analysis of void expansion variables, she announced loudly for the benefit of nearby colleagues, while simultaneously finalizing calculations for her unauthorized dimensional experiment. The director nodded approvingly. Excellent. Forward your findings directly to my neural interface. Of course, Director, Nix replied smoothly, even as she encoded a secondary purpose into her ongoing calculations. The void anomalies were spreading across Universe 3, but they represented only symptoms of a deeper cosmic disturbance. Nix intended to investigate the source, and perhaps, in doing so, revolutionize her people's understanding of the relationship between mortality and divinity. The universe's greatest scientific mind had set her sights on the cosmos' greatest mystery. The consequences would soon ripple across all existence. Deep within the darkness between universes, Lord Void seethed. The attack on the Ascension ritual had failed, but not entirely. Though the Saiyan had completed his transformation, the accelerated process had left imperfections, microscopic flaws in the integration of mortal consciousness and divine power. These imperfections manifested as persistent cracks in the multiversal barriers, not large enough for Lord Void to enter directly, but sufficient to project aspects of its essence into established reality. The nullification spheres spreading throughout the 12 universes represented merely the first stage of its assault. Unlike conventional antagonists, Lord Void possessed no physical form, no central consciousness as commonly understood. It existed as a concept given awareness, the principle of non-existence becoming paradoxically self-aware. Its thoughts operated on principles incomprehensible to beings evolved within conventional reality. Yet it held one recognizable motivation: the desire to return all existence to its original state of perfect nothingness. The Multiverse represented a temporary aberration, a brief flaring of something within the eternal nothing. Lord Void sought not destruction for its own sake but restoration of what it perceived as proper cosmic balance. The ascension of a new Omni-King, particularly one with such a unique energy signature, represented both threat and opportunity. The Saiyan's inherent chaotic nature weakened the rigid structure of cosmic barriers, creating vulnerabilities. Simultaneously, his stated principle of freedom stood in direct opposition to Lord Void's fundamental nature. A conceptual conflict had been established at the highest level of existence: freedom versus nothingness, possibility versus determinism. The outcome would determine the multiverse's ultimate fate. Lord Void extended its awareness toward Universe 6, where its largest nullification sphere continued expanding millimeter by millimeter. Though imperceptible to conventional observation, this expansion followed a precise mathematical progression that would eventually reach critical mass. When that happened, the nullification effect would accelerate exponentially, consuming planets, stars, and eventually entire galactic clusters. The process might take millennia by mortal reckoning, but from Lord Void's perspective, existing outside conventional time, the conclusion was both inevitable and imminent. Unless the newly ascended Omni-King discovered a means to repair the barriers completely, extinction remained merely a question of cosmic timing. The multiverse had survived previous encounters with Lord Void only through the combined efforts of multiple Omni-Kings working in perfect harmony. A single sovereign, especially one so recently elevated from mortality, faced considerably longer odds. In the darkness between universes, Lord Void continued its patient assault on reality itself. The new Omni-King would soon discover that some opponents cannot be overcome through determination and strength alone. Some threats exist beyond the very concept of defeat. Chapter 2 End. The End. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.